Malzinski. I'm the president of Metacomet Land Trust. I just want you to know that since I finally made it here, I brought great weather. 'Cause Wanda, how many times did we reschedule?
Range, no, you know, I don't know, I got 7 of them, I think.
Several times. So I'm here tonight because you might know that the Metacomet Land Trust is a conservation organization that serves 15 communities in South Central and Norfolk, Worcester County and Norfolk County. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization recognized by the IRS. To that end, several years ago, we were contacted by the folks who owned up by the water tower in Manchog on Stevens Pond with some different opportunities they were exploring and the possibility of donating some property. This past fall, we were contacted by them again, and this time they wanted to proceed with donating 38 acres of Stevens Pond waterfront to the land trust.
Reservoir Ave.
At the top of Reservoir Ave, but also, I sent a map, I'm not sure if you still have it, but I can pass one around. So it also has a trail access off of Mumford Road. So you can see the trail access, that's off of Mumford, and then this is all the shoreline. So what I want to point out when you look at this map is that the land trust also holds conservation restrictions on, I think it's 28 acres that have frontage on Duval Road. So that's why it says Metacomet CR.
Yep.
So that was Dan Griffith property for sale. So that means that the current owner cannot subdivide it. So if they want to sell it, they can sell the house with the contiguous property.
With the conservation restriction.
Yes, the conservation restriction carries with the deed.
Yep. Is that for the,
Hmm?
is that for the fisherman parcel also?
The Fishman? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
So that parcel was donated outright to the land trust, and they took a tax deduction, a tax credit for it.
Mhm.
When they did that, and it's also our policy because it's best practices and standards of the Land Trust Alliance, we like to add a conservation restriction as a second layer of protection to our properties. So what we're asking tonight is, would the Conservation Commission be interested in being the holder of that conservation restriction? Because as the owners, we can't also hold the restriction. So we would be writing up the restriction according to the latest language that is provided by the Department of Environment and Energy, the Office of Environment and Energy, and submitting it to them eventually. But you might know, and Joyce, you've done one of these before, the Conservation Commission, you as holders would have to sign off on it, the Board of Selectmen would also have to sign off on it.
With the correct wording.
Right, but they have a new template and we're pretty much on top of that. But the main thing we want here, protection-wise, is to make sure that there is never paved access to the waterfront, that the waterfront stays as is. We have the option of making trails with, of course, your approval and the state's approval, but that the waterfront not be disturbed. No beach, no paved access, nothing like that. So this is, you can see the water tower on that map. It basically goes from the water tower around the pond to the other conservation
That's the fisherman property?
That's the, sorry, that's
Fishman.
Fishman.
Yeah.
It was Sutton Development Trust. This is the water tower
Yeah.
right here. Yep.
That's when
So-
Brandon and I went down, I discovered a leak in the water tower. Because I looked at the
Only
trees,
water.
and the trees had all this ice hanging from them. I said, where's that coming from? And you could see the leak coming out of the water tower.
It's spewing out of the tower. That tower's still yours. We don't have to so if you have any questions, but that's what our request of you is tonight, that you would join us in protecting this property.
Yep.
And that we ask you to hold the CR. We also would have to do a baseline documentation, which means basically doing a status of how the land exists right now. So that when you do a site walk in the future, you can make sure that we're maintaining it as agreed in the documentation, and that nobody else is not trespassing, but doing harm to
Yep.
the habitat, et cetera.
There's public access to it.
There's access from Mumford Road, and of course, there's only so much we can
Yes.
do to keep someone from canoeing over there, and we all fish over there, we do, all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
And there are camps and full-time properties there now. But this is a great way to protect that watershed. It's really fantastic habitat. And if any of you wanna go out and look at it, we can, make arrangements to do a tour or anything like that. But we'd probably do that before the restriction was signed anyway.
Yep.
There's some trail there now, but I was really surprised when we went out at the end of last year, there was very little activity, which was great to see.
Yeah, it was very pretty out there.
It's beautiful.
I guess my question was, can the public access it as a right, or is it restricted to?
So, the way we would write the restrictions, the public could have access to it.
Mhm.
We would like for a trail to be able to take kids out there as a classroom.
Yep.
And things like that. What we definitely don't wanna see is a beach.
Yeah.
Any kind of, we don't want the liability and.
You
it's
can
just-
walk in, you can walk out, you gotta take what you brought in out.
Yep, exactly. And
Yep.
no buildings, we would not,
Yeah.
that's not our policy anyway. We don't want any buildings there. There's no envelope for a building that we were thinking of adding to it. It's mainly trails, passive recreation.
Mhm.
If we ever have enough snow, maybe somebody could actually ski a trail once in a while, but
Yep.
that would be it.
Funny you should say so.
This past winter, I
Andy?
did get out a
Sounds like a
couple
win-win
times.
to me. By me.
I think it's a great idea.
Yes, the town.
I'm just curious, what is our responsibility as a board if we agree to undertake this?
So your responsibility would basically be to inspect the property on a yearly basis, like you would any other restriction that you would hold. But this, basically, we would do the same thing because it's our property, but when we hold restrictions for other folks, and we try to get a property site walk, site visit in every year, just to make sure that an abutter isn't encroaching with, or dumping, that somebody isn't building something on our property because they live next door to it, things like that.
So it's strictly just a site inspection once a year, and probably a written report to you people that it was done?
Yeah, you could.
I don't know,
Yep.
as I said, I'm not sure
And
what's required, that's why I was asking.
Also, this restriction is also recorded at the registry, so it is part of the deed to the property as well.
Irrevocable.
Yes,
Yep.
Unless the legislature reverses it.
yes.
Now, as custodian of this, is there any potential for financial responsibility of any sort? I mean.
Financial liability or,
Yeah, I mean, pick
so
something.
on the enforcement
Something
side.
washes out, I mean, or trees fall down, or
They stay there.
something.
Yeah,
I don't know, I'm asking.
There's we'll continue to work with you on the language and everything of the restriction, but basically, your role is enforcement of the restriction. So you would come to us and say, somebody's dumping, we wanted to call your attention to it, you need to get on top of it.
They're still the landowner and have the liability.
Yep.
Good questions. I think we're all set.
Okay, great. Appreciate your support. I
Yeah.
also want to tell you that the Land Trust is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, and we're planning a big event, hopefully up at Whittier Farms in September, and we'll make sure you know all about it, and hopefully you can join us.
Great.
Would you bring this to the selectmen, or do we have to bring this to the selectmen?
Well, now we have to work on, since we have you as a partner, we have to work on tweaking the language that the state provides to make sure that it's the deed for this particular property, and et cetera, et cetera. It's unfortunately not a short process. So we have to take the drafts and send them to the state, and they have to make sure the legal language and everything is correct. And then they send it back to us, and if we need to tweak it anymore, and then we'll eventually start getting signatures.
It was a miracle for me. I got it done in 4 months.
That is a miracle.
It was.
And since you did that, they've had 2 or 3 other people in as the coordinators of that department. And then they finally just got a new person, so they had a huge backlog, which several of our property owners were the recipients of sitting on their hands, yeah. So Wanda knows how to reach me. I'll start, working on finalizing the language, and then I can come back in, or a couple of our members can come back in and walk you through it, just so you know exactly what it says.
Great.
Yeah, let me know when you're gonna be on the agenda again.
I will, and then I'll
In
plan
the
for 3
summer.
months after. So thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I gotta wait 15 minutes?
7:15,
No,
Sunrise Drive. Come on down. You've got the reading.
this is a new NOI
Yep.
filing, needs to be read in. Just the paperwork.
Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018, 7:15 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Uxbridge Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation Commission by Matthew Sabijone, Sutton, Mass. The project consists of demolishing existing home, building a new house on map 14, parcel 32 on 5 Sunrise Drive, Sutton, Mass.
Good
Welcome.
evening.
Matt is working, he travels, so I'm his father. Take any notes or
Oh,
do
what's your
anything
first
he
name?
needs to. Roland,
Yeah, you have to state your name and your address.
okay, Roland Sabrin, 28 down Farm Road.
Good evening. My name is Raouf Mankarius with Alpha Omega Engineering.
Just so as I might be able to pronounce it right again, which is,
Three vowels, the middle vowel. I was in communication with actually Brandon
right,
regarding this project, and he recommended doing some drainage after I submitted the original submission. So I added the drainage, I emailed it to him, and I think he emailed it to the whole board.
mhm.
And here's a copy of the drainage report and also the revised plans.
Did this have to go through planning?
No.
No.
We like to do the drainage correctly.
Yep.
So, we have to do the, I mean, I know sometimes people just do a dry well, but you really don't have the right calculation for it.
Mhm.
So we like to do the correct
Yep.
calculations before. So there is an existing house here, canopy on the back, and it's actually, looks like when the house was built, it was like crossing the lot line, and they end up like, long time ago, just buying some land from the neighbor.
Yep.
To make it confirm. Now, right now we'd like to demolish this house, build another house. We got a variance from the zoning board of appeal to put it farther away from the property line.
Mhm.
And we already have an approval, and it's recorded. We basically, the new house is a little bit larger, but because it's going this direction, so it's almost the same disturbance within the
Mhm.
buffer zone, the 100-foot buffer. There is a proposed deck with landing, and also this is a drainage system that will be taking all the runoff from the building and send it down into the ground. There was a new septic system that was installed, septic tank, pump, and leaching field were installed a couple of years ago.
Couple years ago, yep.
And they were all set and done, so that's the proposed work. We're not cutting any trees. We are not proposing to do any grading on the property. The site is actually working perfectly with the proposed house elevations. We have the top of concrete 65 and a half, couple of steps coming this direction away from the wetland. And this will be the basement right here, walkout basement matching existing elevation. So there is no grading, there is nothing. It's very straightforward.
Go ahead, Bob.
Now, you answered one of my questions. I noted that there was no regrading shown on the drawing. I didn't know if that was an afterthought or oversight. I also note that there's no walkways or anything else proposed. You know, you got a set of steps down by the deck and stuff like that, but there's no walkway from the parking lot down to it.
No, no. There's actually, this is all gravel car driveway. There is no parking, there is no basement.
No vehicles?
no pavement.
No
It's all
pavement, it's a gravel driveway.
Oh,
Gravel
gravel,
drive, I'm sorry,
yeah.
it's a gravel drive, so whoever gonna come down from the left just to go down and sit in this area and just go out to the water, but
Right, no,
nothing.
it's just, right. Other than that, there's some housekeeping over your construction sequence and erosion control notes that, you know, you're referencing straw bales, which should be out.
It's fixed in this plan. We already
Just
fixed that on
waddles.
the plan, it's there.
He's reading it on the plan.
Oh, here, still?
Just straw walls.
Hay bale dike
Yeah.
in a manner which will
Yeah.
not impact the local wetlands. We don't allow hay
Okay,
bales.
no hay bales if, yeah,
12
we
inch-
missed this one, but this is what we
12-inch
right there.
biodegradable
Yeah,
ones.
biodegradable, twelve
Yeah.
inch biodegradable,
Yeah.
and
Housekeeping.
Agree with that, I was just saying, the housekeeping, that note referencing hay bales should be taken out. So there's no confusion in the future when your contractor puts something down, it's right here in the drawings,
I see, sure,
all right?
no problem.
That's all. Those are the only comments I had. That was all I had.
That's it? Long thin lot.
Mm.
Anybody from the public here to speak on this? Nope.
Looks good to me. Just a Brandon question I know he'd ask, is there any possible way to move it back farther away to match the distance from the water now, the water line?
We're restricted by,
Okay.
the septic system, the exact distance.
I like the side-by-side comparison.
Yeah, I like that on the plan too. I've never seen that.
Looks good.
You set, Bob? Joyce?
Yep.
Could be one of those rare ones.
Yes. Good work.
Good job.
Good job. Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 5 Sunrise Ave, with the idea that the plans have changed, just the wording per Bob's.
Remove the hay bale.
Remove the hay bale wording.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a record, I think.
One and done.
I'm gonna put an exclamation point next to that one. That was good.
Good plans make good projects.
Have a good night. Thanks for coming.
Andy, did you do the second one?
I did.
Yes, it is.
Start signing. You got time.
Okay, now this one's not advertised, so if you want to do the next one, 29 Blackstone, you can. Okay. Okay, you asked me to send out a letter.
Let's
As soon as you're finished with that.
sign these, yeah.
Yeah, sign that and sign the file. This goes in. This is-
Wait a minute. Is that the one we gotta sign?
Wanda,
We
you
didn't
need
sign
more
it down
signatures
this-
on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to wreck the whole joint here. I just need this. What is this? Is this?
It's for me.
Oh, okay.
Which will pay my
Okay.
insurance.
Oh, no, I have to pay my own things.
So can we do the
About the
project
minutes.
update? Can we do the project update? Or
Sure.
do we have to wait for 7:30?
No, on this one,
Not if they're here.
on this one. I don't
29
have to,
Blackstone?
Because it's,
No.
31 Douglas. There we go. Sir, what'd I do to you?
You can take either one because.
Come on down, talk to us.
Yeah. Okay, 31 Douglas, right?
Yep.
Okay, here's the file for 33.
30 what?
Okay, 33.
And what's 33 got to do with 31?
31 is a split lot. Now, let me see if I can do this right.
Oh, this is the one where the driveway was put in a different place.
Right.
Oh,
Correct.
yeah.
So I have to decide what you're gonna do with that.
So much easier when they do it right.
I know, wouldn't that be, and if they did it in 2002, when
Yep.
it was supposed to be done.
We've seen older.
Have you?
Do cooperate. Unfortunately, our consultant isn't.
Unfortunately.
Should be the only thing in there.
Can't get it on the screen, right?
I think she has them on her phone, if you wanna pass her phone around, my wife does. If you want, it's up to you. Whatever you do.
What are we trying to accomplish?
We're trying to get a certificate of compliance,
For a driveway that was put in the wrong spot.
right, because it crosses over a street.
I think everybody agrees it was probably put in the right place, just not where it,
Where it was
not where
supposed
it
to
was
be.
supposed to be.
Right.
Narrowest
Correct.
point to cross.
And the engineer Norman Hill who did it said that the design plan has two 12-inch pipes,
Yeah.
they did one 24.
Yep,
So there's some variation in what was
yep.
proposed and what was actually done.
So do we have a plan that shows what's, like a as-built that shows the,
This is the original.
Unfortunately, no, that's the question. Would you, are you going to ask for an as-built?
Yep.
As
I
what
think
it
we
is
have to.
now?
Yeah. We gotta have something that we can say,
Yeah,
okay,
that was
that's what they did,
part
it's
of the
okay, here we go.
problem. They were supposed to sign, is it today? And
Tuesday.
I asked him if he could move the signing so we can see if we can get this done for him.
They can sign, it's up to their attorneys.
Yeah,
No.
right. And that's kind of where
Yeah.
they found some things.
And
we're trying to get
speaking
worked out.
for everybody, and I think everybody agrees, we don't particularly have a problem with what's been done.
Okay,
Right.
We just need something that says, yeah, here's what's there,
okay.
this is what was different. Seems to be in reasonable conformance with best practices.
Okay,
And we'll say, hey, great, here you go.
okay.
You're trying to buy this property.
That's correct.
And you're unable to close as of
Yeah.
right.
We're trying to figure out, yes, but we're trying to figure out if there's a holdback needed.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, Unibank's trying to figure out if there's a holdback that's needed.
They're gonna produce the as-built, right?
We are.
No, we have.
Or
Yeah,
they want
it's a
us.
foreclosure, if I remember.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So any of the
different-
expense is
different-
gonna be on you.
Gotcha.
Right,
Yeah.
and Bank of America's not, who's a foreclosing bank, is not gonna do anything for us. So
Right.
Unibank wants to know if they need to, what the cost of this is gonna be involved, so they can hold back
Yeah.
something of us
And we-
until we get the strip.
We're not gonna be able to much help to you
Yeah.
on what's gonna cost.
Right, and that's, if I have to get just an as-built plans, I'll go back to Norman, who's
Yeah.
done the septic design as
Sure.
well as this letter.
Yeah.
He can run it some as-built plans and we
And-
can submit those.
Let's just make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn.
No, I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
no, we have to have an as-built
Yeah.
to put it in
And-
our records.
Okay,
We'll be very cooperative, but you
Okay.
can't just say, yeah, it's gonna be okay.
yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's all we need here, so just,
We wish we could. We don't want you to have to spend the money on it, but
it's
you're
gotta be,
buying a house, so
Yeah.
it's never gonna stop anyway.
Did
Right,
you
right,
want this
yeah,
drawing back?
exactly. yeah, I'll take that, yeah.
When
Thank
you get the paperwork, you bring it back to me.
What paperwork, the
and I
as-built?
will- Yeah,
Okay.
and I will get you back on the closest meeting,
Okay,
as soon as Norman can get it done.
okay, perfect. We'll do that. Talk
All
tomorrow in
right.
the morning.
Thank
Perfect.
you,
Thanks
welcome
both
to
coming
town.
in.
Yep.
Thanks for coming in. Blackstone Street, come on down.
We got that
I don't know.
one here too,
I don't remember
somewhere, right?
seeing it.
This is 33.
Yeah, we can't do
It is
anything
right
with that
here.
yet.
Okay, that's the one who had me send the letter out, and I asked him to come in and explain what's going on with it.
Well,
Yeah,
just
my parents are
Yeah.
elderly.
name
so-
and where you live,
Yeah,
just,
I'm Ron Hennel,
Yeah.
I live in South Craft on
Yeah.
Providence Road. And, my parents are elderly, so I came up.
sure.
We've been having people dump there, so I just showed, I talked to.
People have been
Wendy.
dumping there, you're not telling them to.
So we just did that. Wendy just said
Yeah.
to put the signs up. Last year, we had couches, bureaus,
Oh, that's terrible.
And you get to clean it up.
and and I own apartments in Grafton, and we were talking about this, and same thing. Dumpsters are getting filled up,
Yep.
and nobody, I don't know, you can
guard them and
Yeah.
nobody cares.
Doesn't matter,
No.
Now, is there a, gate that you go through to the back?
I
Cause
just
Joan
put-
Bedrosian said
I
that,
just put that there.
Joan Bedrosian said she gave somebody permission to go
Yeah,
through there.
Yeah, my parents, because it's he's got gardens down there in his boat trailer, he comes up.
He's
and-
your dad.
Yeah, my father, my mother and father lived there, 78,
Yeah.
they lived there forever. and
Sure.
His gardens, so he goes up there and like cleans up
Yeah.
and, but so I put that up there.
And you
Yeah,
cleaned up,
Facebook.
you cleaned up what was
No, we
dumped?
didn't clean nothing yet up, yeah. We
You're
just,
going to?
We will try to clean it up.
Yeah.
The grass was growing all around there and
Hmm.
everything, so.
The other question was, how far away from the river is it?
The river, I think we're up close to 200 from that canal, the river we're up
Yeah.
further.
That's the magic number. You want to be more than 2.
Yeah, well, we're from the river, we're way, you still gotta go up another hill and over.
Well,
and
from
everything, yeah.
the canal,
Yeah.
200
Yeah.
feet?
It's gotta be close, I didn't measure it,
Yeah, well, that's what we were wondering.
yeah, no.
Well,
I-
it says more than 2.
yeah, it's
No,
gotta
he
be.
didn't say more than 2.
It's gotta be close to 2, right around
Oh,
2.
okay.
But I never we're not, I was up there the other day, doing this, and now we figured it's gonna be more stuff getting dumped there since the road's closed and no one's, now
No-
no
no
one's going
visible.
by.
Yeah.
What was dumped down there?
It's dirt, there's a pile of, looks like somebody cleaned their lawn, looks like somebody backed up with a pickup truck and
Dumped all the junk.
backed it, raked it, it's a big pile of,
Not trash, not
no, it's
rubbish or,
twigs and dead
Yeah.
grass and that.
I thought there was some trash in the other picture.
But he said over the years, couches and
Well,
that-
I took,
you pull them up.
they've been up top, they've been dumping stuff up top.
these are the pictures that got you here.
Yeah, that's all the,
Brush.
brush
lawn
and, yeah,
It's organic though, right?
yeah, it's all,
I
And then my
I had
father-
asked that and that was a question I
Yeah.
was asking.
yeah, and then, there used to be a pit, there was all boulders and everything, so the kids used to play around on it, so that's where, all the farmers' gardens, because that used to be a big garden up top,
Mm.
and that all got grown in once Bedrosian died and everything, so. But no, nothing's going on, it's
Yep.
local, you guys have it all everywhere in Sutton too, everyone just dumping
Yep.
stuff.
Mm.
We were hoping to find a little thing in the cushion of the couch.
Like a credit card receipt or bill.
An address, that's it.
Game camera, put a game camera up.
Yeah.
That's-
You
yeah,
can look
that's
for
the thing
DNA.
about it. Yeah. It was already heavy enough trying to pick it up, it
Yeah.
was sitting outside for a month, and I was like, oh my God, so, but, yeah, nothing's,
You've answered our questions. You're not actively dumping there. You're not letting somebody else do it.
no.
And you've cleaned up what other
Well,
people
yeah,
have
we
done
try-
over the
try-
years.
Yeah, and you drive by and see a bright red couch sitting there, from the side of the road.
Not your taste.
So,
Ron, a side note, are you doing site work? You the guy that does site work with John
Across the
Gosby?
street from your house.
Yeah, look at him, he looks familiar.
John said you were here.
Yeah, he's doing a nice
As a
job.
matter of fact, John called a couple times tonight already, haven't answered his phone call.
Oh, boy. Make him wait.
I think you're all set with us.
All right,
Thanks.
yeah,
Thanks for
if
coming
there's
in.
anything
All right,
else,
thank
we'll
you.
call. But I think that should hold it back now.
I hope so. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Put a strip of nails in it.
Yeah. Then somebody gets hurt and you're liable.
You gonna read in the RDA to continue it?
The woman that was here?
No.
That's actually the owner standing in the hallway, we should probably tell him to come in, because he probably doesn't know what's going to be.
No, we can't do it yet.
Oh, yeah, 45. Let's do the minutes.
What time, oh, 7:45.
All right, anybody ready on the minutes?
Where are they? What about, make a motion to accept the minutes of April 4th and April 18th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Who did the second?
Joyce.
Yeah.
Tough to keep time on
You can come in. You don't have to stand in the hall.
We're just gonna disappoint you anyway.
No, hey, how many people do you want from the lake? 1, 2, 3, here we go.
Must be a quorum.
Do we get quorum?
Yeah, 3's a quorum, right?
Well, it depends how many are on the board.
No, there was.
Okay, so unfortunately, Yeah, 38 Horn Drive continued because.
Wayne?
Yes.
There's.
You can come in, but you can't talk.
The girl was in earlier, and she had asked me about sending out the abutters
Yeah.
notice. Now, what did you decide on that? Yes?
They need to
no?
go out.
Unfortunately, things got a little, I didn't know they were gonna continue, so, you know, I didn't fill in that slot. Sorry about that.
What else we got here?
Write that down.
Project updates?
Now, we can't do anything with 12 Partridges yet.
Is that guy out
Can't
there
do
from
anything with the other
168
two.
Manchog by any chance?
No,
And
he's
the
from
others,
Horn,
as far as
Horn
I
Drive.
know, the other one that continued was Mike Burke on 81 Briggs Road. He will call me back when he's ready to be put back on the agenda.
So you'll take 29 Blackstone off 81
Yeah.
Griggs.
Yeah, that one's it.
10 Partridge won't show up again until July 1st.
No.
Have we heard any more on that?
I don't know. 8:40, he's coming in too. I'm sorry about this crazy agenda, but, well, what you can do is you can review the 137 Dodge Hill Road for planning board and the West Sutton Road for,
Wells Pond.
pond, the removal of the dam. So 137. This is 137. Now, there's plans with it. I don't know if you wanna look at it or not. I think they're the same plans we got. The only one that can't sign
I
anything.
can't
is
sign, you
Bill.
want me to go sit in the audience?
No.
It's up to you, what I need
I
to
feel
do
more
is have
secure when
this
you're
needs to be signed for planning as to what you wanna do with this. Now, I don't think.
Is there 4 lots for that?
No, this is the single one, the 137, the one up the hill.
Okay.
Did they put it in front of us yet? I don't think
Yes, they did.
Yep.
they did. Okay, so. you
That's not
can-
the single lot,
right.
137
This
is
is
the
not a
four
single
lot.
lot.
The 137 is the 4 lots, yeah.
The 4 lots, okay, I'm thinking the other way.
Has Brandon looked at this?
These numbers,
Has Brandon looked at this?
I don't know.
So some of these are in wetlands, right? And so they have to
I
file?
know this is
They,
the-
they are filing.
Yeah. So that's all we have to say for
Yeah,
planning
they
board?
I don't think they filed with us yet.
We have to, my understanding is go to planning on May 21st thereabouts to see if they will approve this being,
The subdivision?
yes, and then we come back in,
Need to file with us to go forward.
file with us to go forward.
Okay, so we just need to wait for the plans to come in.
Plans are in.
No, unfortunately,
Yeah, but
our
that's
consultant hasn't
planning board.
reviewed it.
No. No,
Yeah.
all I wanna know is if they need to file.
Yeah. And
And he has the answers, yes.
yeah, the note I'm putting down is that they'll need to file with us to go forward.
We're gonna talk about that next, if you wanna hang out.
Oh, you want to
That's
talk
the
about
next
that?
thing we're gonna talk about at board business. So I have a good call with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it'll be at 8:20, 8:40.
You're not gonna talk till that time?
No, no, no.
Well, I guess we can talk about that
Welsh Pond,
No,
Dave,
Welsh
planning
Pond.
board,
Yeah.
board business,
soon.
soon.
And you can stand up and ask questions.
thing we have to wait on is the. Okay, so now I have to return the plans on both of those to planning board.
I can't hear you, Wanda.
I said I have to return the plans for 137 and West Sutton Road to the planning board, so don't sign those. Just
No,
sign
no.
the sheet.
Yeah.
All signed.
Okay, so here's the next one. This one's on the West Sutton Road. That's on the West Sutton Road dam that they're gonna remove, which we don't have that yet either. Here's the plans for that, if you wanna check those out.
Same comment?
Yep, same comment, so.
One of these are plans from West Sutton.
We don't really need them right now.
Bob, what did they
Might be
say,
interested to see him.
what did they say when you asked them about the downstream study?
Said they hadn't done anything beyond the crossing, for the driveway crossing, and they hadn't considered anything downstream.
So if they're gonna rip dams out, I think they have to do that, don't they?
I feel they should, yes,
I feel they should too.
and I'm not even in favor of ripping the dam out,
Nobody
No, me
is.
either, I would just leave it.
but, you know, I
State
think,
is,
you know,
I think that's why some of these
They're
people are in the
they're
audience
building
tonight.
that wall, aren't they?
but this is not what we're discussing tonight. All we're discussing is if they have to file with us. There's no other discussion tonight, because they have to go to planning board
But
first.
if you want to see the plan, say here.
you know, now, I don't know if it's appropriate or not for us.
We've never been inappropriate, Bob.
You know, for us as a board to take a vote on whether or not we support removal of the dam or not.
Right, yeah, I
Well-
don't think that's appropriate, I don't think that, just putting it out there before they come in and put it before us, if there's no downstream study, I don't think there's any, in my opinion, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
Well,
we're gonna ask for it.
this is not the time to do that. The time is when they're here and they come and file. So all of this paper is if telling the planning board that they have to file for us, with us, that's all.
Yeah, 'cause I'm sorry if I can speak, but,
Stand up and tell us your name and where you live, please.
Wayne Miller, 22 Tuttle Road. What my concern is what, the downstream, when they do breach these here, we're talking about how is that gonna affect down in Sucker Brook, as we call it, that end there, if you do get a tremendous rain when it comes through. Before, it was captured in the pond, it kinda sits there, the sediment goes down, and everything settles a little bit before it runs through. Now you're gonna just, it's gonna be a clear path going right down through without any holdback or impoundment at all.
But it'll add a lot of silt to the lake.
Right.
Right, and that's just exactly what we need.
Beach
We
area.
need to fill up the lake.
Well, this is not the appropriate time for any of this discussion. Because this is not what we're doing tonight.
Unfortunately.
Do you want to look at this, Wayne?
I have that book, actually. I have that
You
one.
got it before we did.
I had it too, but-
Yeah. Excuse me.
Do you have the other side?
What did you say, Wanda?
You have a sign sheet like this, for that one?
This one right here.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's on that one. Got it. Okay, so,
COCs, we haven't done,
Can't do any of them.
can't do any of them.
no, we can't.
So,
And
So when it
Until
comes
they-
to 38.
Wanda, until they have the paperwork in here to do them, take them off you.
Well, I had no way of knowing that.
if you didn't have the paperwork,
When she sent all the paperwork in, I had everything, paperwork, the checks, everything, put it on the agenda. I just found this out yesterday. It was already advertised. So unfortunately, there's not much I could do about it. And you have to read it in because it's a new filing.
I'm talking about the people that are asking for CFCs that don't have all their paperwork in. At the very bottom. Way down, Wanda.
Yeah, well, I had that too,
Way down, the very
way
bottom.
down, you know. Oh,
87,
87
89.
Duval Road, 9 Hardback Road.
yeah, yeah.
Neither one of them have anything new to add, and they're still appearing on this.
And
It
the
shouldn't be
letters
there.
went out on the other three, so this one's okay. Yeah, unfortunately, we just gotta wait until,
But what he's saying is don't put it on the agenda if they're not ready to come in.
What's going on with the Concom restriction for 198 Manchog Road?
We decided, well, they don't,
Who's they?
I guess
The
there was
applicant.
there was a question as to whether the wording was correct. But the selectmen didn't wanna sign it, cause I don't think they really understood that the conservation restriction is just like the one from Metacomet, that we're just gonna be the overseers of
Yep.
it.
So has that been relayed back to them so they know, so we can sign it at some point?
We signed it,
I mean, or so they can sign it.
so we
know
decided we
you
would
signed
kinda
it.
do the two together.
It went back, then they sent it back to us and said, the board of selectmen need to sign it, and sent it downstairs, and they wouldn't sign it because the wording wasn't right. They sent it to, town council. Now, I don't know if it was the same like what you did, and why wasn't the wording right, if it's supposed
Well-
to be the state wording.
The letter that you sent to me,
Mhm.
I think there was a question as to whether it was a conservation restriction through the state or it was not. So I think that's what we have to find out, is if it was approved by the Department of Environmental, whatever.
Protection.
Cause it went back to the lawyer, and they said, you've gotta find out about the wording.
Yeah.
I haven't heard back from them yet.
We've done our part.
Yeah.
So we
Yep.
can actually take that off.
Probably shouldn't be taken off.
No, it probably shouldn't be taken off, but,
Okay, so you wanna leave it on there?
We've done our part?
No, I don't know if we have done our part.
Okay. For now.
no, I don't either. We need to find out from that
Put two of
lawyer
them together and sign it, and
if it's through the state, or it's just a non-binding conservation restriction.
Okay, I'll contact them.
I think we've gotta make a motion to continue this one here to
You have to
May
read the end
16th.
first, though?
Yeah.
You have to read it
As
all.
long as you can do this in this is.
Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018, at 7:45 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Oxford Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to review a request for determination of applicability submitted to the Conservation Commission by Mass Electric, Waltham, Mass. Project consists of installing one new single wooden utility pole, 8-9, to service 2 new homes on electric utility easement at 38 Horn Drive, Sutton, Mass.
Make the motion to continue to May 16th at 7:30 PM.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No end of the paper.
Yeah, just so you know that the.
But it's
the abutter list
7:45
wasn't
now.
done. The abutter list wasn't done, so she came in earlier. Yeah, right.
Please go home.
Okay, who did the second on that?
I did.
There is no other talk on the other.
No,
On Welsh Pond, there's nothing,
it hasn't come up yet. They haven't come to us yet.
We'll make sure you
Is that
know.
coming before you, as a question, is that gonna come before you, then a planning board also, or is it, where?
I don't know if planning has anything to do with it, I don't
Well,
know.
it's probably planning board first, because they're the ones that wanted us to sign on
Welsh
it.
Pond?
Yeah.
Your meeting is, I believe, the
Yeah.
21st, the next meeting. So that's why we're
What'd you just say,
signing
Wanda?
Planning board's meeting, I believe, is the 21st, so that's why we signed those for Jen to come back and get our review. She's waiting for.
Planning would be
us.
next Monday, be their next meeting.
Week after, I think, the week after the.
They had one last week.
Yeah, so
a
it's
week
the
ago.
week after the town meeting. And she'll have.
So it probably won't be till June sometime.
Okay,
But they will be going to
Yeah.
planning board.
Planning this month.
yeah, planning this month, and then whenever, sometime later on, it'll be announced that it'll be coming here to
Right.
conservation.
No,
And
planning because they do the
need
drainage.
that
There'll be a public notice for that, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we have 15 minutes that we have to wait. Sorry about that.
Good night, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Sounds great. The Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018, at 8 p.m. at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Oxford Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to review a request for determination of applicability submitted to the Conservation Commission by James Renard and Christopher Contis? Close? Sutton, Mass. Project consists of installing a 6-foot solid vinyl panel fence on map 12 parcels 359 on 12 Partridge Hill Road, Sutton, Mass. Come on down. Make it last.
So you, I think everybody should have a copy of this picture, or,
I sent it to them by email.
okay.
No, that works.
Isn't that a beauty?
Yep.
You can't see it, Bob.
So, the fence, the picture of the fence is, from our property
Yep.
looking onto 10 Partridge Hill Road. And so, post number 1 is pretty much at the top of the hill. Post number 2 is about, 6 feet down. And then post 3 was where we were proposing to have our fence
Start, yep.
start and run across. So I guess.
And you had it surveyed or staked out or something?
We had our boundary on this side where the fence is not.
Yep.
To get that boundary to make sure we weren't over on our neighbor's property.
Yep.
But in terms of, there was nothing for the wetland part.
We were told just as long as in front of the signs that were placed there when we bought the house.
Yep.
That's it.
And they're up, not at the bottom, but right up here.
Right.
Right. There,
So
from
you're
post-
going to
from
post 3.
It's probably about 8 feet
Yep.
before you hit the sign.
Yep.
So that's where you're gonna put it, post 3 and across?
We haven't really, it's either gonna be post 2 or post 3. It really depends on what the guy from the fence, which he says is gonna be easier to install, where it's gonna be installed.
'Cause I was gonna ask you, what are you gonna
Yep.
do with that slope?
Yeah.
Are you gonna keep
Might
that
be better
slope? or
just-
you
We're
gonna-
keeping the slope, we're just gonna put plantings in it.
Yeah, just.
Yeah,
He wants to do a garden.
Maintenance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We don't want lawn, nothing to
Yeah.
mow,
Yep.
it's hard to get up, so.
Yeah, there probably won't be any other than probably what's grows there already,
Mhm.
or just other additional plantings.
I see no problem. I would recommend that you keep your fence a little bit away from the sign so you have an opportunity to maintain the
Yeah.
backside of your fence without going into the wetlands.
Sure.
If you
Keep
could
that in
get
mind.
there,
Yeah.
because I doubt you're gonna put a door through it.
Yeah, I don't, other than, I don't think so, because there's really, we can only go up to the
Yeah.
fence, the sign, so.
You know, as I say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you're gonna have vines and stuff wanting to grow on it,
Right.
so you're gonna wanna keep it
Right.
maintained a little bit back there, so as they say,
Yeah,
give
the-
yourself enough room to maintain.
Well, the
Yeah.
more important piece would be, they can't get there now, unless they put
yeah,
a door
yeah,
in,
unless they put a gate in.
and we don't care,
Or-
but for
or
your own.
ladders up
Yeah.
over the top or something, but I'm just saying, you're gonna
Yeah.
wanna maintain it one way or the other.
Trampoline on each side.
Comedy's free.
Yeah, good,
Okay.
good.
I have no problem.
The mailings, who, you guys want the
One.
copies?
Yeah.
The certified or certified
What
mailing?
I'll do is,
I have copies of those originals.
all right,
You're a little
so-
slow tonight, but I know you get 10 minutes.
That's it. 10 minutes.
Make a motion.
I would say that, just notify us where you're putting the fence when you've
Okay.
decided.
Sure.
Make a motion to close the public hearing. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to issue a negative determination for 12 Partridge Hill Road. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's what you wanted, a negative.
Yes.
So when we're done, we just let you guys know, I think Brandon's gonna come out, is it Brandon or Brendan?
Brandon.
Brandon comes out
Yep.
and just to verify.
Someone will come out or someone's
Yep.
gonna be able to
Okay.
drive by and see it.
Okay.
Okay.
Other than waiting, it was almost painless.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night,
Have a good
guys.
night.
We're pretty efficient without Brandon here. We're pretty efficient. Without Brandon.
Oh. He doesn't.
Question is, where's
Can't
Frank?
believe you just said that he's gonna watch this video tomorrow.
I'd say if he was still here.
Suppose we could do another recess if we have to.
Yeah, another 10 minutes.
We'll wait another 10 minutes.
Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018, at 8:15 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Uxbridge Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation by Stephen LaFleur, Millbury, Mass. The project consists of construction of a single-family home with associated septic, driveway, and well on map 35, parcels 101 and 93 on 382 West Sutton Road and 648 Central Turnpike.
Thank you very much, Conservation Commission. Glenn Kowalski from EBT and Mr. Stephen LaFleur. These, I did talk to Brandon over the lot. I'm not sure if he has a comment into you. We also talked to DEP over this, as there are two pre-existing river law, non-conforming lots. There's presently a bridge here. You might have seen this. I'm sure you're familiar with this field potentially. You're familiar maybe with that little waterfall that's just off the property that the guy was building in the 80s, as I recall, because I used to drive this road. I lived in Millbury at the time, over the years as he was building it. We'll give this to Wanda. It's the certificate of mailing, please, and then the DEP number came out yesterday or the day before, but no comments. As Denise Child was, we reviewed this merger clause. It goes into common law. We've had attorneys look at it. Building inspector commented on it, that if you have two non-conforming lots, these are both, again, existing prior to river law, two existing non-conforming lots owned by the same person, it's merged, is what the clause is.
Yep.
It's been around for back into the 1900s, 1800s, this clause. So we supplied you with the merger clause. We supplied it to DEP. We supplied the deeds, both Stevenson's deed prior to Mr. LaFleur owning. Stevenson owned these two, and then he sold them to Mr. LaFleur. So again, in the end, they will be merged at DEP, at the registry, through the planning board, and they will become one lot. We're not gonna merge the lots until we discuss this both with DEP and the Conservation Commission, Brandon, that under law it's merged. There is no question on that. One ownership, two lots, non-conforming, it's automatically. Please review that. If you have any questions, we'll send you more information on it. I believe I gave you quite a bit on it, DEP too. So again, it was 4 separate deeds, the 2 Stevenson deeds and the 2 LaFleur deeds. We did talk to DEP. Gary Dunway called me. He just wanted to see that the deeds, so we sent them all over because we sent them to Brandon, so it was just a matter of sending that file over. He did want to see just the same thing as Brandon did, as the same thing as I did, and I proved that I was looking at it too, was infiltration of the roof, because we sent emails out to Jason Dubois. They were out of Charlton. Apparently he's not familiar with your town as much, because he did end up putting the septic within 100 feet. So let me go through one thing at a time, of course. I want to talk about it, I guess. We have a driveway the furthest point away, the septic that's going to be moved, and at Perkindeep's already, the application has gone into Perkindeep back here. I have a plan from months ago where I showed the septic back there. Because I took what it says, the conservation through your avoidance and minimization clause would require us to look back there. Because this thing is right within 100 feet. Here's that wetland system. This is all stone walled in here, stone walled, and eventually opens up 3 and then comes out. And I did find lacustrine flow, riverine flow in here. It's very small, the pool, so there's water lateral flow. Normally, if it's act like a river, then it's treated as a river under the regulation 1058. If it acts like a lake or a lacustrine or open water body, then you treat it as a open water body. I found lateral flow. I was supposed to meet Brandon out there at 3 today. Something must have come up.
He had his death in his family.
Oh, I'm so sorry, because I did email. Are we still meeting? I didn't.
Yep.
So I didn't hear about. We were going to go over these things on the site. Sorry for that. Yes. So back a while ago, this one doesn't show it, but a couple months, I took the septic design down here. I just cut out paper mache, arts and craft, whatever. I says, look at it, fits back there. Go Perkindeep it. And until just recently, when I was saying it had to go back there, Brandon said, because I'm not a Title V guy, I don't confess to be, well, not that we can't read regulation. He said, oh, no, they don't allow it within 100. I says, well, I'm putting it over there anyways. We already have, we had the application out early, Monday? Was it
Yes, I
Monday
was
or
here
Friday?
Monday.
So Mr. Malley, Mr. Jay Dubois was supposed to meet Mr. Malley yesterday and actually nailed down the date, the perk, and obviously we're gonna be asking for a continuance, if that wasn't clear. I am gonna be asking for a continuance, because we want this hole to be done, we wanna prove that we can put the septic back there, we wanna get it out of this first 100 feet, it has to be out of there unless we'd ask for a variance from the Board of Health, and there's no need to ask for a variance if we have areas outside 100 feet. Not only that, why put it in the riverfront area when the commission's gonna require us to put it outside the riverfront area for everything? So we ran the driveway along the property here, minimum construction quarter around the house, as under 1058 4 requires us to look at, minimum construction quarter around the house, but in order to get grading, obviously, normally you'll have a 1.5 foot of foundation showing. So we came out with the grading, and the grading, the commission could say, well, why don't you just put a retaining wall there and don't have this extra grading, but what we wanna do, if you read the NOI, we talked to Dr. Tom French over mowing. And in fact, Buckley, who just retired, Mr. Buckley, Jack Buckley, he's in the paper talking about mowing. We have a field here, we can keep the diversified habitat out there by mowing, and this mowing wouldn't occur until either July 15th or August 15th, depending on the birds that you're trying to preserve. So I added that into the notice of intent, that this field, we're asking to leave it open as a field, but allow for bird nesting habitat, mow it,
Twice a year or something.
Once a year.
well,
Once
right, but not before those dates.
Yeah.
It depends on the bird, July 15th, or, there's lark and bobolink, there's a few other ones that use grasshopper, sparrow. Look at bigger places, I did that one over at Greenwood landfill in Worcester. But so anyways, we'd like to keep it open, but leave it as a field, mow it down. The only lawn that would be around 20-foot construction corridor around the house, that's what this line is for. Mr. Dubois did not get your monuments in there. He just got this plan to me late, first thing in the morning, this morning or late yesterday. I just had it printed out at Staples so that I could show you that we're working in the direction of Caltech, which we didn't have before, which I was asking for. There's no detail on this swale. We're gonna have a detail on the plan. There's a detail on the Caltech. I'll be asking Mr. Dubois to give you the drainage calcs to prove that it's a ½ inch in 24 hours. If it was a trout fishery drinking water supply or beach down gradient, I'd go with 1 inch in 24. Just had that at the Central Mass Auto Auction earlier today. So unless the commission was insisting on more infiltration than the ½ in 24, that's what I would normally do unless I had those critical areas downstream. So we'll prove that this is sufficient with that soil type to infiltrate the roof, prove that the driveway's swale is sufficient to infiltrate the driveway. And we'll put the monuments on the plan, and hopefully we'll have the septic design back here by time of next meeting, and that's how quick we're trying to get this done. If not, then we'll ask for a continuance for a couple more weeks, and by that time, we would expect that we'd have the septic designed and get it out of here. And again, this is still mowed. This bridge, Mr. LaFleur uses it for his lawnmower. This has been mowed over the years. He keeps it mowed. And again, I believe there's an exhibit in your notice of intent showing an aerial flyover or something, just to show you what the site looks like. Let's see if it's in here. This is excuse me. At the next meeting, what I will bring this to is, again, I'll have some photographs on the ground of what the site looks like, standing there, but I think you're mostly familiar with it. And that's about my presentation on what we're proposing to do with this one lot merged. But I will bring you in some photos. The office was supposed to get that one flyover. All the flyover shows is just the field and then this coming in. I'm not sure how it missed on my copy, but we'll get it to you. And we'll have an inspection with you, if you inspect or Brandon inspects. It might be a what, I'm not sure how long Brandon might take. The
Any
line-
comments,
One
Bob?
other thing on the line, if I could just say, thank you, Bob. This thing is, when this pond, this pool area, and it's shallow. The reason why it has lateral flow, it's filled in with organic over the years. It's shallow, like 2 feet, maybe 3 feet. Maybe down the road, Mr. LaFleur is looking at, maybe that he might, there's a potential anyways to look at picking up. There was one last thing. We did call for all exotic invasive species, and we actually called out the square footages of our exotics, and they are being removed. And this site is Atlantis, multiflora rose, Japanese barberry, if I didn't say autumn olive.
All the good
Oriental
stuff.
bittersweet. It's
All the
got
good stuff.
the gamut because it was a field, and we're going in these areas, we'll take the root systems out in the plant, and we wouldn't want to convert it back. This is a large, a very tall wall, just to revert it back to a field to do that mowing exercise on the field. That was it.
Brandon likes to have a limit of work identified
Right.
and close to the property lines.
It is, the limit of work I told Jay would be this water line. You see the water line going all the way around? That is, and I had him tighten it up. to
I
the
understand, he just likes it labeled as well, just,
We'll make sure
just
that
to
it's,
know, you know,
if he didn't already, we'll make sure that it is labeled as limit of work.
as I say, he likes it labeled as such as well.
Yes,
as,
sir.
We'd like to see what you touched on, monument locations
The
for the
monuments,
signage.
of course, as you require, every 50 feet or at angles, so if they have to be
Just-
closer, they'll be on there.
Shown on the drawing. There appears to be, there's no clearing or no trees along the stone wall on the north end of the site, apparently. I
No,
see a
there isn't.
clearing
In
limit
fact,
shown
it's-
other places,
that's-
but I
it's
don't see
very-
it
it's-
there.
The north end of the site,
That's
nope,
Is that
there's,
there?
yeah, right here, there's no trees, there's some multiflora rose on it, a little bit of oriental bittersweet, the same with this wall. And it was my idea, and I know that you had, at least at one point, thought about possibly removing that stone wall.
Not necessarily.
Good.
I'd love to leave the wall,
I
but,
would too.
the entrance is right there where it shows, and it would have to be relocated, so.
What I would suggest is that these stones be used here and it just be potentially blocked off.
The stone wall along West Sutton Road is crumbling due to
Well,
weeds growing up within it, and actually, some of the trees that are growing up within it are dying, they have died. And what I'd kinda like to do is rebuild it with everything existing, at least to,
Get it on the plan, now's the time to put it there.
well, we have to change the location of the driveway, egress and access up there, up toward the north wall. And, just to clean up that,
Yeah, you
that's
can-
just full of.
What we're
it's
trying to
just-
say is
Right,
you can get
right,
it all
just-
approved all at the same time and just done.
we'll show on the plan. The other thing would be, there's an Atlantis double stock, small stalks. I was there today waiting for Brandon. There's one Atlantis here, and there's a dead, white ash right near the entrance. The rest is multiflora rose and oriental bittersweet. Except where there is some bloodroot near flowering, if you
Oh, wow.
ever see bloodroot.
There's also a number of dead trees along the waterfront there,
Right, but they might,
along and through there, I don't know.
some of these we've got a good white ash die-off going on over here. So some of those white ash, again, we always know, and I tell my clients too, some of them, if they're not under your head and they're in the riverfront area, then they end up, that's habitat. So some of that stuff, if it's not a hazard to the road or to you, they might insist to leave it.
Well, that's just something I'd like to clear up before we,
Get
if
going.
we eventually get going, you know, what we can do and what we can't do,
Yep.
Well,
because
the site inspection would have covered some of these
Yep.
points. But the exotic invasives, clearly, we were going after them all along the walls, so.
Typically, we show the trees that are coming down on the drawing as well.
And I intended no trees coming down, because this is all field, there's no trees here. That's not a tree, this one Atlantis, that European Asian exotic invasive pain in the neck. And, there was a few of those Atlantis, small ones up in the back. Ideally, if Mr. Fleur, if we would look at, potentially, we have to grade up into this area. But we do have a limited work also, so that grading would occur, but then the limited work would still be 20 feet, even the way that I've designed it behind here. If the septic goes back here, well, of course, we're gonna have to keep the septic area mowed. Well, that'll all be detailed out once he gets that septic design.
Yep.
There's no trees in here, there's no trees in here, and this is the neighbors, and that's exotic, those are roses and everything in there, so we'd have to work with the, that'd be another whole RDA or something else that comes along if the neighbors work with us.
Yep.
To take out those and turn, the problem with having exotics next to what we're trying to keep, was just in Webster on Tony Leo's solar farm, obviously they seed out in there, so our whole ballgame up there in Webster, which we just permitted, is all exotics go even adjacent to us, and we're working with the people so that we just don't have them seeding back in there. Especially that autumn olive, we get all of these guys about that high, right in a field that's been let go only for a couple years. They come in pretty quick, so if we can move them all out, this guy has a mowed lawn here, clean them out here, clean them out here, and at least, this wall is about 10, 12 feet high, so most stuff isn't gonna jump up over that. And down below, this is a mowed area already, and there is some exotics right at the end, but the beginning of it's mowed. And again, they mow up to the stone wall, and he mows up to the stone wall. There's a little bit along that edge.
Yeah.
Is that you mowing it, or is that a neighbor?
I'm taking over mowing it from the neighbor down here.
Over here? The tab.
There was initially a dispute between this neighbor and the one here, that this neighbor was claiming that was his property. And when I talked to him, he referred to it as a right-of-way. And I talked to my lawyer and I said,
is there anything there?
no. He suggested I send them both a letter that basically states, I am the owner of the property and I give you permission to cross it to the point where if I deem it necessary, I can take that permission away. If somebody keeps crossing that for a significant amount of time, they can
go to court.
I can't prevent them. And this gentleman has been driving through there and so forth. Just to keep good neighbors, I want to say, I even brought it up to him. I said, I'm going to send you this, don't be offended, but it's just a legal issue.
That's what you gotta do.
I just did it to one of my properties, 2 people with.
So I am now mowing, the whole area is about
This is butters here.
90+% of that
This is
property
butters here.
there is mowed now. And it has been mowed, and I continue to mow it.
It was
and
mowed
now-
before you too.
Oh, it was mowed before me too. It was always mowed. So, I just continued it through the last several years that I've had the property.
And that's the other reason why we did one, because we know from the previous medical one over on 20 next to the Econology, which I will, if you choose to talk to me about that after this whole thing, but we were required to allow that old house lot backyard to go back or revert. In this case, because it is such a, it is a field with no trees in the middle, we did want to look at that habitat issue with mowing. And the state thought it was a good idea.
Sure.
It's not the biggest field in the world, but it is a good idea to keep. Bluebird, presently there's bluebird nests all through here, houses, I don't know if that.
I put those up, in Millbury, I have it's an old farmland. And I met a gentleman who, he was a former lieutenant for the state police, and he is working with people in the Auburn Sportsman's Club to reclaim the bluebird population. He's a very big bluebird expert. And he ventured up to my house, and I helped him with stuff down at the Auburn Sportsman's Club, and I got into putting up bluebird houses. And he comes up and checks them out and tries to ban them and so forth. And as soon as I bought the property, I said, wow, what a great place for bluebird houses. So I put several of them up. And I just noticed my neighbor next door, I put 4 up, and he put about 10 of them up. So it's
Do you have any bluebirds?
yeah.
All right. Thank you again.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks. Go ahead. Thanks.
All right, anybody from the public here to speak on this?
We want to hear anything you have to say to make sure we have everything in this plan, but I think we've thought of it, and we've heard from Mr. Taft, we heard from Brandon.
Yep.
We know what we have to do is get things away, label things properly, get the monuments, get the limited clearing, possibly, and just some more detail for the drainage swell. And calculations for volume. So we're pretty clear on this.
And you still got the avoidance statement you gotta fill out? The avoidance statement?
Yes, I did. I filled it out. It is part of your, it's right after my project description. The avoidance statement is the next 2 sheets, and then there's the rest of the notice of intent. So Brandon reviewed it. DEP looked at that too as the alternative analysis. Because in that voided statement, as I told Jay, the engineer, it's gonna come out that there was another place to put the septic, even if you didn't have to put it 100 feet away. And that's why I kept insisting that we gotta look in the back.
The only thing I had to add, if you did wanna take those trees down, get them on the plan.
Yeah, there's a significant, well, there's a few that are dead, there's a few that are beautiful, but, if we're gonna do something and they're gonna have the equipment in.
You don't wanna come back.
I don't,
Do
I
it
don't wanna do that.
once, Figure
Yeah.
out what you're gonna replace them with.
So we do that when we have this site visit, we look at these things?
It
Right,
does-
look at them and then we'll put them on the plan before the plan comes
Yeah.
back in
Okay.
front of you.
And it's Glenn knows. Doesn't mean we'll say, yeah, okay to all of
Right.
it.
Oh, okay.
But
Oh,
put
if
down,
they're-
put down what you'd like to do, we'll talk about it.
there's some good
Right?
specimen
And
trees
it's a
out
lot
there,
easier
they're actually
than
white walnut.
not.
And so they're a
Usually
forest
dead
crop.
trees have a
They-
lot of wildlife value, so
Yeah.
if they're not gonna hurt anything, they stay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We'll understand that when we're looking at it with Mr. LaFleur, so I'm not gonna ask.
Glenn will
anything,
guide
but
you quite well.
Need a couple weeks, or do you want 4 weeks?
We're, this perk might be coming up in this week, and he can, because it's not gonna be much different, the soil type through here is the same, he might be able to just take this full design and just prop it back. I'm gonna ask for 2, and if we have to, I'll get a hold of Wanda and ask for 2 more when we're coming close and
May
we can't make it.
7:45.
Make a motion to continue to May 16th at 7:45.
Second?
All those in favor?
It
Thank you.
doesn't say who abuts the land, usually that's on the plans too, who's on the,
We did notify all the butters, but we will put the abutters on this plan.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Happy-
much.
Happy summer.
Yeah.
glad to have the bluebirds.
That's right.
I'm surprised by how
When
many
we were
there
kids,
are.
we saw one. I grew up in a meadow in a marsh out in the middle of nowhere. It was wide open.
Find it?
I think, my first one, I didn't see it until the 80s. That's how huge they were, and I was born.
Now there's a lot.
Now,
So
that
they're
is a
coming
lot.
back.
And, northern tree swallows, tons of them. I mean, they pretty much do the same thing. The gentleman has educated me with birds.
I just
what
sold
he
Robin
does.
Sportsman Club a bridge, so if anybody can sell anything. I just sold them a bridge, 35-foot long, 5 feet wide. The one that came out of Cranston Print, I'm
So
sorry.
it's the one that's laying, it's like.
You saw it,
Yeah,
that,
I drive by it
It
every
took me
day.
since April of 15, it was on my property. I just got rid of it 2 months ago. Well, is anybody gonna buy it, I gotta cut it up.
It's one that's on Craigslist.
Sorry.
Well, thank you very
Right.
much.
Have a good
Thanks
night.
for coming.
Okay,
Glad, is it town launch gonna get done this year?
The mud on my shoes, and I'm not even kidding you, that mud right there, that's from that unnamed tributary. It is, that tributary is
it's
now.
not unnamed, it's Glenn's tributary.
It's restored. We had 60 gallons a minute, I think, if I didn't tell you this, back in September. This is at the height of the summer, the height of the drought. The thing is all groundwater flow. We just did the chemistry, if Brandon didn't share, I did send it over. The pH, turbidity, calcium carbonate, I just did that a month and a half ago. So even if I've been trying to get fish below, down at Market 32, I was down there over the weekend looking for any offspring. I have to do a little bit more in that, what you call intermittent, but the perennial tributary coming down at the far end of, behind there, that's where Mark Briggs and I had found the
Yep.
offspring in the past. So although I fish below the waterfall, and I'm a pretty good brook trout catcher, and I fished over.
Not a
behind-
fisher, you're a catcher?
I'm a fish catcher. I mean, I grew up in a trout brook, so if you use the worm and you get it in there, I'm not no fly fisher, I'm like, come on, guy. So nothing biting when they should be biting in the deepest holes. I'm kinda curious if there's anything left behind there.
Did
So,
the,
but there are trout below Boston Road, so if I could just say this thing. The habitat that's on that unnamed tributary is now restored. I've come in there, look at the depth, the plant life, I've got isopods, caddisfly, stonefly, mayfly, everything in the plant, the starwort is the green plant in there that, right behind that Tony Ranker site that we did. All the way up, there's springs coming in, major springs coming in, flow into the stream system. It's now all open, it's scoured out, as long as there's no sand coming in, it's got a deep channel to it. In itself, from the corner log driveway going up to Armsby Road, is a trout, it can be a trout fishery. There presently are no trout up there, there's nothing above it. State electroshocked it, found nothing above it. Once we get trout in there and get them up into that area, even if there's none below the Corner Lodge, I'll work with the state to get them in from below Boston Road, because they can survive and have its own fishery just from the Corner Lodge up to Amesbury, because that quality now of that brook, go back there, is high enough and wide enough and deep enough and the food supply is in there, it'll support itself as a fishery. That's what I was working on, and even this afternoon I was in here. One last limb came in. What we don't want is any blockages, because we wanted to scour down to the gravel bottom, and now it's at the gravel bottom where the groundwater's upwelling to the gravel bottom. That's what the female trout looks for, to lay her eggs in, so that the eggs are developing at 46 to 48 degrees, and that they hatch. The problem with this winter was, in some of my brook trout fisheries, it was so cold so long that if a trout lays its eggs in non-groundwater upwelling gravel, and I have 200 Sportsman Club, there's one like that, there's one in Dulce Court, which I just did a sept on. The eggs actually died in the reds. When the eggs stay in the gravel too long in the spring because the water temperature is too cold, so that they stay in there. This is what I'll be real quick. When I studied 200 Sportsman Club, the problem with a deep snowpack or a cold spring is the brook stays cold longer into the spring. The air temperature might warm up, and this year it didn't, but the air temperature might warm, but the melting snow keeps the brook cold because it's 33 coming in. And so if the trout eggs stay in the gravel up into 2 months after February 1st, which was the case this year, they would die in the red because they used all their oak up. And this year was so cold in the spring, in that March and April, that I have dead eggs in gravel that wasn't fed by upwelling water. In upwelling water, those warmer springs or spring-fed brooks, they don't have that same problem because the brook is warmer in the winter, and also where the eggs are, it's warm, and they normally hatch out very end of January to beginning of February, those eggs. And the evolution of brook trout is to hatch out in that warmer groundwater, but they have also evolved to utilize areas that don't have groundwater upwelling, but those are precarious eggs. Too cold in the spring, eggs die. Warm enough, they will come out. And normally they're in 200, they would be 2 months after the trout in Wellington Brook hatching out, which were my key 46 to 48, and those were late January, early February, and the other ones were 2 months later, and then if it's too cold in the spring, they would die in the red. So I had a really rough spring, what trout did for hatching out because of this cold spring. So, but we have trout that are laying their eggs below Boston Road, and those are down there. So we can utilize that same population up.
Great.
Where we just restored that habitat. Yes, and Mr. Patel is still on board. I already have the checks, I already have the signature. I am getting this thing in front of you. I talked to Mr. San Germano, we're gonna get that request for certificate in front of you also. I talked to him.
Good.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Market 32 's
Thanks
next
for the
trout.
education.
Well, I know you've been patient. That's the only reason it's a whole year. But the work will be done by the end of the summer when there's no flow.
Make a motion?
No, I think we
The
got,
last one is 168 Manchester Road.
come on down.
Mark is here to ask you a question.
It's not begging forgiveness.
I'm not gonna be quite as knowledgeable about, Manjog Pond.
Thank you.
Very nice.
So I was here, about a year ago. I purchased, 168 Manjog.
Name and where you
Oh.
live and.
Oh,
yeah.
sure, Mark La Rochelle.
Yeah,
And I'm at 169 Manchog.
good.
Own the property across the street, 168 Manchog. It's about a year old. I don't know if you remember the spot. It's very
The dock.
yeah.
Next to 172.
It's a very thin strip of land
Yep.
that just borders Manchog Road.
Those are right on the corner there?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, yep, the last dock there. You guys had given me permission, which I'm very much appreciative for, and got to spend most of the summer last year on it. A couple of things turned out as we got to use it, that one, it's a lot smaller than what we had hoped, and
A
the
lot
other is
smaller.
Smaller, well, so you guys gave me an extra 50 square feet above the 300 limit.
Yep.
Put the dock in.
Was that to get it out further?
No, so you also gave me 10 more feet above the 30, because it's very shallow there.
Yeah, 4-foot draft in his boat.
Yeah.
His boat had a 4-foot draft.
Does it now?
It's not 4, it's about 30 inches, it's 29, and I do have, unfortunately, I thought that was gonna be working, I would have brought you some. Yeah, I don't know if this is helpful.
If they can see pictures, sure.
Yeah. So I got creative with the computer. Hopefully it's helpful. I have some pictures after that. So the dock goes out 40 feet. And at the end of the dock is 38 inches. The boat has a 30-inch draft. Where the prop sits on the boat, it's an inboard, so a direct drive. I don't have a trim, the ability to trim the boat at all. Where the prop sits, it's 34 inches, coming back in from the end of the dock a bit. So that leaves me about 5 or 6 inches of play.
What kind of
which,
boat's this? Ski boat?
It's a ski boat, a wakeboard boat.
And it's got 34 inches to the prop
29 inches draft.
from the top of the boat?
That's the water level down to the bottom of the prop.
Is it a V drive?
Yes.
It's got ballast sacks and all that stuff?
Correct.
They do draft a lot of water.
Okay.
They make a huge wake.
Because my ski boat didn't take
No,
anything like
mine,
that.
I got mine's like nothing.
Nothing, yeah. It's got those are typically flat bottoms
Right.
and don't put up a wake so you can slalom ski. This one aims.
So you're one of them.
I'm one of them.
Too bad.
You're out.
You can leave.
So when I pulled it in, we didn't bring it in until about the end of the summer last year. And as I walked it in, the water had already fallen. The 34 inches that I have now is today. By that time this year, I won't be able to do that. I wasn't able to do that last year. So what I did is I walked it in, I tied the bow of the boat up to the end of the dock. I threw an anchor out and
Long story short, what do you want to do?
I'd like to add another 10 feet and another 50 square feet to accommodate that extra piece.
10 by 5 is what you're saying?
It's a 6 by 10 piece, so it's 60 square feet, which gets me to 400, 340. I didn't utilize all 350. I started with just 280 square feet. I wanted to go up to if I add another 6 by 10 section, that gets me to 340. That gets me the square footage, but I still need the length. So 50 square feet and 10 feet of length is what I'm looking to do.
And it's because you just can't run the boat in there.
Not comfortably.
Yep.
I really.
At the end of the season.
At the end of the season.
Get a different boat.
Well, if I remember, on the road there, you're set back, so.
You're in a hole.
Yeah, even if the dock went farther out, there's no boats going
There's
in
no
the traffic.
traffic.
There's no boat traffic there. It's
Right, you know,
almost like it's a cove there's a street there, for lack of a better term.
Correct. I did try and include some pictures that you can kind of, I stood opposite the dock of my neighbors and looked across, and you could see where the current dock is relative to that line, if you were to just take the land straight across. And
No one's
there's-
going in there.
No, nobody's coming in there. The only people that do come in there are trolling boats, trolling fishermen. It's rocky, it's very shallow.
What you're showing here is a lot more square feet than what you're describing to us, though, isn't it?
So you gave me, so the dark brown is 280. When I put the dock in, I didn't utilize the full 350 that you gave me. I said these pieces are expensive, so I wanted to see if what I was able to build at 280 square feet.
So that's what you have now
was
is 280?
280.
The one on the left.
And so, having used it, it's basically since you can't utilize the land, you utilize the dock as your land. So you're kind of limited when you have anybody but the 4 of my immediate family out there. So the intent was to add another section on within what you guys have provided me, off to the side or in front, one or the other. And then the issue with getting into deeper water.
I'd be more comfortable if you just put another section in here to send it out, personally.
Yep.
Put a section here and just
Bring
send
the
all
whole,
that
the
out.
whole thing up.
So what would the total square footage be, 400?
400, yep. So
Billy, is the
50 more than what.
Association got any rules or regulations on any of that?
No, nothing's set.
Well, we do,
We do.
so you would I would think you would have to file again. And,
See, that wouldn't,
Yeah.
that dock, what you have now wouldn't even work in certain parts of the lake, cause it would be out in the middle of, not in the middle, but it'd be in
Yep.
the line of traffic. Like, I couldn't do that where I am.
Yep.
But you could probably keep going and no one's going in there.
Still on the RDA, which is.
yes, but how do you allow one person and not anybody else? That's
Well,
my issue.
There's some
Case
rationale.
Extenuating
There's some rationale.
circumstances.
And if you, I don't know if you saw the, that's the angle
Yeah,
of the water. You saw
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, okay.
And it's as Joyce just said, to overcome your problem, you could just extend it out another 10 feet,
Yeah, yep.
right? And that'll get it done.
What if the end of it was floating, where it's, I don't know, is that something we have to,
Dock's a dock.
Dock is dock, and we have a maximum
okay,
square
is that,
footage.
I didn't know if that was considered
Yeah,
a dock
yeah.
too.
Yep.
What about
That-
Conemaugh?
That state regulation that we were just talking about only applies to docks on piers. It does not apply to floating docks.
Okay, so the state's not considering a floating dock at
This
all?
floating dock is unregulated. The stationary part is.
When you say a floating dock,
Like barrels under, my
Yeah.
dock has those plastic, I think they were very fine.
the bylaws,
barrels.
what's tying him up?
Right, gotcha.
Poll the audience.
I don't have a problem.
As proposed, or,
I don't have a
in-
problem on case by case because of his location, but I understand where you're coming from, someone else comes in, but
and I can see, yeah, okay, we'll give you some more length to get you out there.
Do you have the proper things on there to mark it and everything?
I put
Reflectors on there.
reflector tape on each leg.
That's not good enough.
That's, well, then I can certainly.
You're not abiding by the rules right now then, if that's,
I
Just-
thought you
Right,
had
it's
reflector.
reflector. It's a
Yeah.
reflector.
Reflector.
Reflector tape is,
Yeah,
that's gonna hold up better.
they want reflective tape on the back of tractor trailers rather than round reflectors.
okay, all right. I
Well,
thought
You
it
can
had to be
see
the
it
round.
as you're coming
It's
down
more-
Manchog Road,
Yeah.
you can see all.
When you
All
came in,
four
when your
lanes.
original RDA, did any of your abutters come in and have a problem with it? Then I'm good with it. Extend it a little more, I'm fine,
Extend it out with the,
as he wants to.
as he wants to.
No, not good.
I could justify extending it out, but to extend the area of the platform at the
Yep.
end, that's, to me, brings up another whole, situation for everybody out there that wants to have
A
a
little more
sunning
area.
dock as well as a boat dock on a lake. And,
Understood, yeah.
you know, I don't personally think I wanna get involved with that type of argument with everybody on the lake that says, well, geez, I'd like to have a place so I can put lounge chairs and some, you know, and have a boat
Yeah.
out there and
I
everything else.
get that, I guess it's the
And
lack of bond.
I understand the problem you've got,
Yeah,
all right, in that you haven't got a, but,
yep, I hear you.
I agree, I just can't see letting one person and not everybody else, so I have a problem with it. You can sit in the yard across the street, but
So extending it out another 10 feet, you're okay with? Not really?
not really, but, maybe another 10 feet, but not
Not adding on to it?
adding on to it, no.
that's my feeling.
You got 3-2.
Alright.
Send it out another 10 feet, you're all set. Don't make it any wider.
I'll take that.
Have
We
a
need
nice
to write
day.
it up.
Even though you're a wakeboarder.
Yeah.
Did you put this
God.
in writing? We gotta have something to put in a file, so you gotta,
I did email, but it's
See if it's in.
documents I put together to,
Well, we can just
Would.
do it by the minutes,
Yeah.
saying we approve
You want a
extending it
motion?
out another 10 feet.
yeah, we
Yeah.
need a motion.
Make a motion to allow the dock at 168 Manchog Road to be extended by 10 feet?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you.
Have a great day.
Enjoy the summer.
Appreciate it. Yeah, you guys too.
Stop by for a boat ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Season's here. kind of.
Are you a wakeboarder?
No, I can't.
I was gonna say, I could have.
Does it look like
lots
a
of-
wakeboard?
Do
I
our
used
next
to
meeting on the
water
list.
ski about 50 pounds ago.
Now it's just easy to drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Now
that
I
a
sit,
motion I
now I
heard,
sit,
Bill?
to see- well,
Was
you
that a
can't see
motion?
that.
Motion
I
to
make a-
adjourn.
On television.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Don't let us beat you